So today I have Debora Luzi, who is a word alchemist and empowers women to find their voice, both online and on stage, through her Women Who Dare to Desire conference and Daring Networking community. Debora, thank you for joining us today to celebrate our Inspiring Inclusion series. And can you just share with us, what do you hope to inspire in empowering women to share their voices on stage?
To me, it's like I read on the day that every woman, every being is a star. And sometimes they don't believe they have this beautiful light, they have this beautiful voice, because we are, used to don't say anything, don't do this, don't say that. So a lot of women really are hiding in their shell. They are hiding, they are scared to be judged. And this is huge. This is a huge thing. And that's why I think a lot of us are not really going out there and saying what we think and showing our true colors. We're really scared to be prosecuted, to be judged. So for me, with the conference, with everything I do, I want to give, it's not me giving permission to the women, but I want the women to know that they can speak their truth, they can be who they are, and they actually have to be who they are. Because when we are a half a version of us, we don't really serve absolutely anyone. So this is really my biggest mission. And like on Saturday, we had the conference. I was telling you, there is such a joy that I feel inside when I see a woman, like, I pick their name or I tell their name on stage and they're like, oh my God. And literally, I see the fear being broken in front of my eyes. And the thing, when you break the fear, I always believe the fear is compact energy. When you break it through, it becomes, like positive energy. And it's amazing when you start seeing these women that then they start to speak the truth, and then you have to stop them because they go on, isn't it? They go on and on and on. So for me, it's super important because I never thought I had a voice growing up as a child. I was very shy, and I went through a difficult childhood, and I was silenced many times. I was always the nice one, the overgiver. So it is really a personal journey for me to allow women to shine and speak their voice.
Yeah, and I think that's something I see a lot within the space. Those that are there creating safe spaces for women to speak up, supportive spaces, actually is because we come to creating this with the empathy of understanding how it feels to be silenced or to not be heard, not be allowed to be visible. For you, just for those that are listening, can you think back to the moment when you realized that you had a voice and you needed to use it for the greater good?
I am very intuitive, and it just went to a time which I didn't think I was going to mention, but it was incredible. So I was married before, and then I got divorced, and I was married. It was a really terrible relationship, very verbally abusive, and I was crying all the time. And at the time I looked much older than now, like 20 years, because I was always a wreck. And I remember saying yes to this man all the time. Whatever he would say, I would try to please him all the time. I would try to do the things. And I remember very, very clearly, Laura, when we were traveling, we traveled for 1 year, like as a backpacking, and I fell pregnant of my current eldest son.
Yeah.
And I always had said yes to absolutely anything. And that time I fell pregnant, and he said to me, okay, so you're going to abort. And I remember for the first time really looking at him And my voice just came out. I was like, no. I was like, you can go your way. You can do whatever you want. I am going to have this child.
Mm.
And he was shocked because, you know, this is a woman that says yes to everything, that got him back, you know, many times, that I said no, and the no was never real, was always half a no. You know, like I was saying at the conference, we say yes, but it's never a full yes. So even a no, it's not a full no. So my no's were never like a firm no. And that time I said no. And I stuck to it. I went on to become a single mother. I divorced, then I divorced, and I had my child. Is now, you know, an adult. So
He's a wonderful human.
oh yes, yes, it's a wonderful human. And so yeah, for me that was really the first time that I kind of embraced, and there was so much power just saying no, you know, and I was like, oh my God, I can actually say what I want. And I said exactly, I just didn't say no. I said what I wanted to do, what I wanted to, and I said, I don't care what you do, what you are. This is me. This is what I'm going to do. And so, yeah, it was, I think that was kind of a very defining moment. There were other moments, of course, throughout my journey, because again, for me, showing up on social media, which that is what I teach women, and speaking your truth on social media and maybe getting things. And there was a lot of different moments, but that was very defining, I have to say. So I went back definitely to that time.
Yeah, and I think when you have a pivotal experience like that, it's like an anchor point, it's like a touchstone in your life that actually, when other situations come, or you need to hold that strong boundary, or you need to have that wholehearted yes or wholehearted no, you know how it feels to be in your power. So you've got that to draw on. And I think what I have loved from seeing your speakers at the conference is actually by hearing other women speak and tell their stories, tell their journeys, other women can question and find those pivotal moments too. I think that was one of my key takeaways.
Completely. I mean, and I had so many people leaving the conference and telling me, oh my God, I had the biggest realization. You know, sometimes Laura is just a word. You know, even the last speaker came on stage and she was like, I wasn't really sure, why am I here? And then I said the word blessing.
Yes.
And she said, oh my God, that's why I'm here, because I'm a blessing. So I think, yeah, sometimes it's just a word that you hear, and, you know, it's the exact word that you need to hear in that moment to kind of break free, really. And sometimes it can be just a very, very subtle moment or word that really breaks you free, for sure.
Yeah, and I think this is where it also applies to inclusion when we look at this in workplaces. It's about that noticing, and it's about that power. When something is maybe it's not right, or somebody is not being stood for, to be able to use our voice for good, to be able to not speak for somebody, but to speak up and speak for change. And so I'm really curious to know, obviously you've been leading these communities for some time, some of the powerful transformations and changes that you've seen being made by those in your community without breaking any confidence. Would you be happy to share some examples?
Yes, I mean, there are so many. And sometimes, you know, we think, oh my God, we need to have a rag to riches story, someone that did that. You know, but sometimes, as I was saying before, even the smallest change in for a woman can make so much difference. But I've seen women literally like not knowing how, you know, not believing in themselves, not wanting to sell, not wanting to promote themselves. Like I've seen women literally shaking, feeling vomiting before, you know, promoting their business, and now selling their, like, you know, with so much confidence and owning their voice. I've seen women, and it seems like little, but I've seen women living marriages. I've seen women, you know, finding partners. I've seen women starting to make money, become independent, getting off benefit. I've seen women with also like very delicate mental health healing
Yes.
and giving up their medication. Is what I remember. One of my first, when I started, one of my first client, it was just incredible, the transformation that, you know, that she had, because she was, you know, she was let off from work and, you know, a home. Obviously, when you're at home, you start to be very lonely and you start to think a lot. So she was on medication. And then we connected, you know, through somebody else. And she started to get interested. And I was like, you know, your passion can really become your hobby, can it become your business? And she had no idea how this would work. And because she started, and actually her business bloomed so quickly, because the idea was brilliant. And the fact that she was doing something she really loved and she had so much passion, it didn't give her the need to get the medication anymore, because she was getting that serotonin, that, you know, dopamine and everything, all these you know, things that we need chemicals in our brain. She was getting it from her own business, from showing up, from doing the things that she loved doing. So I've seen a lot of that as well, of really women feeling anxious and, you know, like completely lost in their life, finding a way again. And that was just you know, I see that all the time, to be honest, really all the time. And because our brand is a lot about daring, I see a lot of women daring to do things that they never done before, taking a step and, you know, going and do TEDx, or going and half in their team or double in their team, or putting an offer with 3 times the price. So many different, you know, like, how do you say, results.
Expressions and results, yes.
And again, it's really hard to point, because something that is big for us can be small for another person, and vice versa. You know, and that's why sometimes we're looking at these huge changes. You know, we said, oh my God, you need to have a huge change, like a rag to riches story. But sometimes the small change can have the same impact. You know, I really believe that.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot to be said for that creation of community and belonging. So the one thing, obviously, I saw from attending your event is that feeling of when people come in, they feel welcome, they feel included, and it does not matter. I mean, I saw so many ages, so many diverse types of women represented. And that was pretty incredible, because often these things attract a type or this niche or that niche. And actually what we want to say is, here is a space for everybody to feel safe and to feel welcome. Because I think there is, yeah.
And that's why we were, you know, when we were talking about what the conference is about and what my ethos is about, is I don't have a stereotype. I don't have, you know, if you don't like, because I had gone through stereotype myself.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people are going through that, like even being a foreigner, sometimes my English was good, or, you know, another stereotype, like I don't have a degree, for example. So there is so many different category that people put you in. And that's why I want to give a voice to absolutely everybody, any color, any size, any background, any, like, from people that have 2 followers to people that have, you know, more followers. I don't want to see that. For me, there is a common denominator that goes beyond the way they look, where they come from, which is their heart.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, is the heart beating? Yes. All right. We don't look at, you know, the vessel of the heart, like, you know, the body. Like, okay, the heart is beating. Does he have a passion? Yes. Does he have a story to share? I'm doing like the heart.
Yes.
Does he have a story to share? Yes. Is this heart excited? Yes, that's it. Come.
Wonderful.
You know, this is really what I believe in. And I'm glad that you noticed there was a lot of diversity. And that's why sometimes you know, I am a little bit against people that go like, oh, I coach, for example, women 40, 50, 60, 20. And I mean, sometimes people are in menopause, you need to have a certain time. But again, you know, some people go to menopause very early. And I have clients from 21 years old to 75.
Yeah.
You know, and again, my common denominator is the heart, is that desire. You have that desire, then that's it. We don't look at anything else. And so for me, that's super, super important. And also being an immigrant myself in a country where, you know, it's not my country, you know, and I know it's like when I was quite young, I remember actually many years ago, giving a leaflet, you know, my conference leaflet 4 years ago, I was at the underground giving a leaflet. And I stopped this lady and I said, oh, would you like to take a leaflet? And she said, what? And I said, would you like to take a leaflet for my conference? And she said, are you doing a conference? I can't even understand your English. Go back to your country.
Wow, that is incredible.
Yes, I was told that.
Yeah, yeah,
But, you know,
yeah.
these things happen and, you know, it's nobody's fault. I don't believe it's nobody's fault. It's just, you know, everybody, we have our own beliefs and we grew up the filters of somebody else.
Yes.
You know, even though, you know, I have certain privileges, of course, as I had rejection as well for many different things. So that's why for me it's very, very important to really have an inclusion, to have everybody, to have any story, any background is very, very important. And I think in a way it makes me happy because I think I have to say, coming from a country, I come from Italy, Laura, I feel Britain is quite inclusive. I think British people don't realize how inclusive Britain is, but Italy is not.
No.
We're going towards that direction. But I grew up with like not many inclusion. The only people that will look different were when, you know, the people selling bracelet in the summer in the beach, and everybody else was the same white Italians, you know, and there was always like immigrant coming. There was a lot of so yeah, I mean, seeing this country, I'm actually very proud
Yes.
because of course there is more to do in this country as well. But another thing, if I may share, I know we're going there, but I really feel like sharing. Like I grew up in Italy, and presenters in Italy, especially women, Laura, they're all one shape, one size. They're all beautiful. They're all blonde or brunette, and there's just one size.
Yes.
Either, you know, they present football, they present children, whatever it is. And coming to England and switching on the TV and seeing anybody being represented, you know, it doesn't matter how they look, you know, what their size is. And I remember when my little one was born 18 years ago, you know, like I'd never watched CBB. And I remember watching CBB and there was a presenter on a wheelchair.
Yes.
And there was another presenter without an arm,
Yes.
you know, and I was like, oh my God, this in Italy, I don't, maybe now it's happening, you know, but when I left, it wasn't like that. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so I really appreciate the effort that this country is really making. And sometimes people don't see it because we can't compare it to other things. But I think Britain is walking towards a lot of inclusion. Even the fact that you are discussing this topic, you know, it's a great awareness that you bring in.
Yeah, I think it's hugely important because everybody, it does not matter where we come from, our gender, our nationality, our social mobility background, you know, that's something I'm also very, very passionate about, I have a slightly different background where, I come from a family where neither of my parents have a single qualification. And so to break through and to make those differences, that for me is why I see education, but I don't mean education in the traditional sense. I mean real education as the type is happening at the conferences, the sharing of stories, people publishing, all of this actually enables others. And I think if we have overcome something, we very much have a duty almost to share our stories for others and to hold the flag for people who may be coming afterwards with a certain experience or a certain difference. And as you say, the work that was done by the BBC to represent inclusion, I remember it was a very specific decision on the part of the BBC on a number of different fronts, because they really realised they needed to represent diversity in all forms, both in children's TV, in adult programming. And I think they've really pioneered that, and through their global collaborations made that globally the standard, accessible to others.
I think you British are pioneering in many things, you know, and that's why, again, as I said, maybe, you know, you don't see it, but I love, you know, I'm Italian, obviously I said it. I love this country. Of course, I live in London. It's multicultural. And I know that if you move somewhere in a small village, it becomes like Italy, probably, you know,
yeah,
the
I would
mentality is
say.
bit. So probably I don't see the full picture because I live in a multicultural country. But for me, it's so normal, like, you know, to go everywhere and see people, you know, from any religion and, you know, doing their things and wearing, you know, whatever they need to wear. And, you know, while in other countries, like, no, you know, it doesn't happen. So for me, it's very normal. But I think, and that's why, because I feel it here, but I think, yeah, like British people have pioneered a lot of things in that way. I think inclusion and see here, was it in Britain that it was the first same-sex marriage? I think it was in Britain.
I really don't know. It may well have been.
I think it was in Britain. That I think
I know they had civil partnerships and then they changed the status to marriage, but all of that has come through campaigning. And it's been a long, hard road for the people in that community.
But it happened.
Yes.
It happened. Many countries are still campaigning.
Yes.
And how long are they going to campaign for? You know, we don't know. But I think, yeah, it was because I think one of the, maybe it was Sir Elton John, they actually married. I don't know if it's that's the story. But that shows you that you guys, I say you guys because, you know, British, you fight and, you know, you do. And of course, there is a long way to go in everything. But yeah, I will definitely want to pioneer and includes. And again, for me, it's the beating of the heart that matters.
And absolutely, I think one of the other things I want to touch on as well, because obviously your lovely sons were there, your 3 boys on Saturday. And I think one of the biggest things that we can do, particularly in these difficult times, is raising our children with these values of inclusion, of tolerance, with having the confidence. And obviously for you, you're raising young men. It's really important that those values come through. Tell me, how has that been?
It's definitely, you know, we live in London and, you know, in many places there are things that are not inclusive, but I always tell them, you know, again, about the heart, about how we're all the same, how, you know, I say, see, that person might be, you know, looks different, but they have a dream like you. They have a heart like you know, and of course there are distinction, there are things, but they're very, very beautiful boys. And they are incredibly mixing with everyone.
Yes. It's
like, you know, you think like my boys, they're white, you know, like my husband is from South America, so they're Hispanic, but their friends are from everywhere.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's like people come to my house and they really get that, because also my first son is the same things. You know, there's so much inclusion in my family. I know I never say no, that he can't that she can't, or that has never come from me, you know, and I think they're really taking that. And also there is a lot of education at school.
Yes.
I have to say there is a lot of education, and I always say, you know, follow your guts and about a person, you know, don't judge by the cover how they look. You know, you never know what is gone behind. And I really talk to them a lot about this. And yeah, and I can see that they just welcome everyone. You know, even when we go out and, you know, they talk to people and there is never that, no, I don't like them, I don't like this, I don't like that. They're just very open children, very, very open. And you saw at the conference, I mean, I wasn't expecting them to wanting to steal the microphone. And but yeah, they're just naturally very curious. And I believe that, you know, they are inclusive, and because yeah, they have friends, you know, different type of friends from different culture and religions, and they just welcome everybody. So
Yeah.
for now, I don't know what is going to happen in the future, but I believe they have the seed planted inside of them. And then, yeah.
Absolutely. It's what people are exposed to, what they see. And I think it's so important, because I think for young men particularly, it can be really difficult, really confusing. And we talk a lot about the impacts on young women. And obviously, as you know, I have 3 daughters. It's the other way around for me. But we're looking, you know, I think it is so important to see young men also being raised with these values of inclusion, of compassion, of caring. And it was just so, so lovely to see. And I'm sure that, you know, in some way they'll follow in your footsteps and do their own leadership work.
To me, it was beautiful to have them there. It meant so much to me. It was like, you know, I get emotional, but it was like a legacy, you know, leaving on them. And that is exactly what you said, Laura, because I am a mother of boys. And sometimes I see a lot of things for women, even though I empower women. And sometimes I believe that God and the universe has given me men and not daughters, because it's like we empower women, but what about the men? What about the boys? You know, they need to learn as well. They have their own feelings, they have their own emotion. And one of my dreams when I had my boys was to actually create a charity for boys, to
Yes.
support them on their emotion, because I think it's tough to be a woman, but it's tough to be a boy, Laura.
Yeah.
Women are rising, you know, and women are like becoming, you know, voicing everything. And sometimes, you know, men can feel disempowered because they're like, they have mixed messages and they don't know. And I even remember at school, one of my child, they said, oh, mommy, they always favored the girls and the fault was always mine. And this girl was very rude to me. She said something really horrible to me. So we have to empower, you know, that's why I love that we had men's at the conference, not men, because we need to talk to each other. We need to empower the women, but we need to let the men see the women, and that we're not empowering women to let the men behind or to get revenge, you know.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
can talk for America, you can see. So
I love it though, because I do think, you know, as you say, for men, it's that ability to, and I think where they struggle, and I think there's a particular generation that's struggling. We've seen the very well publicized facts and statistics about men in their 30s and 40s and their struggles with mental health. And I do believe it's because they've grown with strong women, and they've been really confused about what their role is, what their contribution is. There may be, you know, not had those role models actually of men who are in their presence and real masculine, as opposed to a wounded masculine. And so I feel it's so important, actually, as you say, that whilst we're talking about conversations about women's empowerment, we're also looking at the conversations of how do we include men, how do we bring them into the conversation, whilst also not compromising the safety. For some women, they do prefer female-only spaces, and we've got to have that right balance between the two. But certainly, I really think, one of the things that can advance women more quickly is actually also bringing men to the table as allies.
Yeah, and I think that was it was a big lesson for my boys, for my husband. My husband was there, and there were other husbands, and obviously he heard the story and he saw, and he's supporting me, he's there. And I think this is super important. Yes, I wouldn't want to close the door and say, no, you're out, and because we have to talk to each other. Like everybody, even inclusion is about talking to each other.
Exactly. It's
everything
about breaking the barriers.
Yes, it's about communicating and taking all of the facade and then going back to that heart. It's like, oh, we all have one. Oh my God, we're all the same. Oh, we have one. And so, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed today. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate the time that you've given. And I look forward to seeing the great things that you're going to go on to do.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. And I think it's beautiful that we did it today, actually, after the conference. It was so well planned and, really beautiful. And I enjoyed this conversation. Oh my God, I could go on for ages. Thank you so much for, sharing this, for inviting me. And anybody that is viewing, I hope we have planted a little seed. We have given them a word or something that they can take away, because I really believe, as I told you, like a little message for someone. So I hope that we have planted some seed somewhere.
Absolutely. And we'll be sharing the links to connect with Debora with this interview. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. Bye.